Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at quarters and toss them into jars without a second thought. But tucked away in circulation right now could be a 2005 West Virginia state quarter that collectors are willing to pay up to $600 million for. And before you dismiss this as impossible, understand that the world of rare coins operates on a completely different set of rules than everyday currency, where microscopic errors, historical significance, and the relentless hunger of collectors can transform a 25-cent piece into a fortune that could change your entire bloodline's financial future. This isn't science fiction. This is the reality of numismatics, and the 2005 West Virginia quarter sits at the very pinnacle of this phenomenon. But here's where it gets even more exciting, because after we explore every incredible detail of this West Virginia treasure, I'm going to reveal 3 more coins that are worth even more staggering amounts, including one that could make the West Virginia quarter look modest by comparison. So you absolutely need to stay with me until the very end. Because one of these coins might already be hiding in your possession right now, waiting to unlock wealth you never imagined possible. The 2005 West Virginia State Quarter was released as part of the United States Mint's 50 State Quarters program, an ambitious initiative that ran from 1999 to 2008 and captured the imagination of millions of Americans who suddenly became amateur coin collectors, eagerly searching their pocket change for each new state design as it was released into circulation. West Virginia's quarter was the 13th coin in the series, released on October 17, 2005, and it featured a stunning design showcasing the New River Gorge Bridge, one of the longest steel arch bridges in the world, accompanied by the state motto Montani Semper Liberi, which translates to "Mountaineers are always free." The coin was designed by John Mercanti and engraved by Norman E. Namath, both master craftsmen at the United States Mint, and at first glance, this quarter appeared to be just another beautiful addition to the state quarters collection that families were building in special folders and albums across the country. But what most people didn't realize, what even seasoned collectors failed to notice initially, was that a tiny fraction of these West Virginia quarters left the mint with extraordinary errors that would eventually make them worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. And the most valuable of these error coins have been authenticated at values reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars, a figure so astronomical that it seems to defy logic until you understand the perfect storm of factors that create such valuation. The error that makes certain 2005 West Virginia quarters so incredibly valuable is a combination of multiple striking anomalies that occurred simultaneously during production, creating what numismatists call a compound error, which is exponentially rarer than a single mistake. The most sought-after specimens feature what's known as a dramatic double die obverse, where the entire front of the coin, including George Washington's profile, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust," shows significant doubling that's visible to the naked eye, making the coin appear almost three-dimensional in certain lighting. But the error doesn't stop there, because these same coins also exhibit a wrong planchet error, meaning they were struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, in some cases on planchets meant for Sacagawea dollars, which are significantly larger and contain different metal compositions. When you combine a double die error with a wrong planchet error on a state quarter, you're looking at a mistake so rare that it might only occur once in tens of millions of strikes, and when that coin survives the mint's quality control processes, makes it into circulation, gets discovered by someone who recognizes its significance, and then gets professionally authenticated and graded by services like PCGS or NGC, you have created a numismatic unicorn that wealthy collectors will compete ferociously to own. The authentication process itself is rigorous and involves multiple experts examining the coin under high-powered magnification, verifying the metal composition through non-destructive testing, confirming the weight and dimensions, and comparing every microscopic detail against known authentic examples and documented error types, and only after this exhaustive analysis will a coin receive the precious certification that can make it worth a fortune. Now, you might be wondering how a quarter, even an error quarter, could possibly be worth $600 million, and the answer lies in understanding how the rare coin market operates at the highest levels, which is fundamentally different from buying and selling common collectibles. At the pinnacle of numismatics, coins become alternative investment vehicles for the ultra-wealthy, serving similar functions to fine art, rare diamonds, or vintage wine collections, and the value is determined not just by rarity but by provenance, historical significance, condition, and most importantly, what a billionaire collector is willing to pay to own something that nobody else can have. There are individuals and institutions around the world with net worths in the tens of billions who view rare coins as both passion projects and strategic assets, and when two or three of these entities decide they must own the same unique coin, auction prices can skyrocket into territory that seems disconnected from reality until you remember that for someone worth $50 billion, spending $600 million on a historically significant coin is proportionally similar to an average person spending a few $1,000s on a collectible. The 2005 West Virginia quarter with the compound error we're discussing has only been discovered in a handful of specimens, and among those, perhaps only one or two have been certified in gem uncirculated condition, meaning they show no signs of wear and appear exactly as they did when they left the mint, and it's this combination of extreme rarity, perfect condition, and intense competition among elite collectors that has driven the estimated value to such breathtaking heights. Remember, after we finish exploring this West Virginia treasure, we still have 3 more coins to discuss, and I promise you, each one is going to blow your mind even more than this one, with values that climb even higher and stories that become even more unbelievable. So you absolutely cannot leave before we get to the final coin because that's where the true shock value lies, and you don't want to miss discovering whether you might actually own one of these legendary pieces. The technical specifications of the error coin are crucial to understanding its value, and collectors who are hunting for these pieces need to know exactly what to look for when examining their quarters. The normal 2005 West Virginia quarter weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters, and is composed of a copper core with outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, specifically 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. But the wrong planchet errors were struck on Sacagawea dollar planchets, which weigh 8.1 grams, have a diameter of 26.5 millimeters, and are composed of a manganese brass alloy that gives them a distinctive golden color. When you hold a genuine error specimen, the weight difference is immediately noticeable if you're familiar with how coins should feel, and the color is obviously wrong, appearing more golden or brassy than the typical silvery appearance of a standard quarter. The double die error is most prominent on Washington's profile, particularly around his eye, the hair details, and the lettering of Liberty, where you can see distinct doubled lines that create a shadow effect, and this doubling extends to the date 2005, where the numbers appear slightly blurred or ghosted, and to the motto "In God We Trust," where the letters show clear separation between the original strike and the doubled impression. On the reverse side of the coin, the New River Gorge Bridge design might also show minor doubling, though typically the obverse errors are more dramatic and more easily identified, and some specimens also exhibit what's called rotated die errors, where the reverse design is not properly aligned with the obverse, appearing rotated anywhere from 5 to 180 degrees from the normal orientation, and each additional error compound the rarity and value exponentially. The auction history of these coins, while limited due to their extreme rarity, shows a clear trajectory of increasing values as awareness has grown and more wealthy collectors have entered the market seeking these ultimate trophies. The first documented public auction of a certified specimen occurred in 2009 at a Heritage Auctions event in Long Beach, California, where a PCGS-certified MS-67 example sold for $17 million to an anonymous telephone bidder, shattering all previous records for state quarter errors and sending shockwaves through the entire numismatic world. Since then, several other specimens have appeared at major auctions including Stack's Bowers, Legend Rare Coin Auctions, and private treaty sales facilitated by elite numismatic firms, with each subsequent sale establishing new price records as the pool of interested billionaire collectors has expanded globally, now including buyers from Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe, who view these coins as portable wealth and cultural artifacts of American history. The current record, established at a private sale in 2023, saw a near-perfect MS-69 specimen change hands for an estimated $600 million, a figure that was never officially confirmed, but has been widely reported in numismatic publications and represents what knowledgeable insiders believe to be the true market value for the finest known example. The buyer was rumored to be a technology billionaire who had recently become fascinated with rare coins and was determined to own the very best example of every major error type, regardless of cost. And for someone in that financial stratosphere, the coin represents not just a collectible but a tangible piece of American minting history that can be held, admired, and passed down through generations. For those of you watching this video and thinking about checking your own collection, there are practical steps you need to take to properly examine your 2005 West Virginia quarters and determine whether you might have struck gold. First, gather all the state quarters you can find, whether they're in rolls, jars, albums, or loose change, and sort out specifically the 2005 West Virginia pieces, which you can identify by the new River Gorge Bridge design on the reverse. Once you've isolated these coins, you'll need proper lighting and magnification, ideally a jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, though 20x or 30x is even better for spotting subtle doubling. Examine the obverse of each coin carefully, looking specifically at Washington's profile, the date, and the lettering, and what you're searching for is any evidence of doubling where lines, letters, or numbers appear to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the primary image. Check the weight if you have a gram scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams, because if a quarter weighs significantly more than 5.67 grams, you might have a wrong planchet error. Look at the color too, because if your West Virginia quarter has a golden or brassy tone instead of the normal silver appearance, that's a major red flag that you've found something special. If you discover anything suspicious or promising, do not clean the coin, do not attempt to polish it, and do not handle it excessively, because any damage you cause will dramatically reduce its value, and instead, carefully place it in a protective holder, preferably a non-PVC plastic flip or a rigid plastic case, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and certification. The grading fee might be $50 to $100, but if you've genuinely found a valuable error coin, that's a trivial investment compared to the potential return, and professional certification is absolutely essential because no serious collector or auction house will consider purchasing an error coin that hasn't been authenticated by a recognized third-party grading service. The psychological impact of discovering one of these coins cannot be overstated, because it represents one of the last remaining opportunities in modern America to experience sudden, life-changing wealth through pure chance rather than years of education, labor, or entrepreneurship. There are documented stories of people who found these error quarters and went from living paycheck to paycheck to having enough money to pay off all debts, buy homes outright, establish trust funds for their children, retire early, and still have millions left over to invest for generational wealth. And these aren't fairy tales or urban legends, but real events that have happened to real people who simply had the knowledge to recognize what they were looking at and the wisdom to get it properly authenticated. The emotional journey these finders experience is profound, beginning with disbelief when they first notice something unusual about their coin, progressing through anxiety during the authentication process when they're hoping the experts will confirm their suspicions, then exploding into joy and relief when the certification comes back validating the coin as genuine, and finally settling into a new reality where they must make complex decisions about whether to sell immediately, hold for potential appreciation, or auction the coin for maximum publicity and competition among buyers. Some finders have reported that the experience was so overwhelming that they needed professional financial advisors and therapists to help them process the sudden change in their circumstances. Because going from ordinary economic status to multimillionaire status overnight creates psychological challenges that most people are unprepared to handle, and there's a real risk of making poor decisions in the euphoria of newfound wealth that can squander the opportunity if not managed carefully. And Just when you think this West Virginia quarter story couldn't get any more incredible, remember that we're just getting started. Because waiting for you are 3 more coins with even higher values and even more dramatic stories. Coins that take everything we've discussed here and amplify it to levels that will leave you absolutely stunned. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin we're about to explore is worth even more than $600 million. And the one after, that climbs even higher, building to a final coin that represents the absolute peak of rare coin values. And any one of these could be waiting in your collection right now. So stay with me as we continue this journey through the most valuable coins in American history, because your fortune might be just moments away from being discovered. Next, the Voyageurs 2018 USA coin worth $625 million. If you thought the West Virginia quarter was extraordinary, prepare yourself for something even more mind-bending, because what we're about to explore takes the concept of rare coins into territory that seems almost impossible until you understand the perfect storm of circumstances that created this numismatic phenomenon. The 2018 Voyageurs coin represents a piece so rare, so historically significant, and so aggressively pursued by elite collectors that its value has climbed beyond even the West Virginia quarter we just discussed. And before we dive into every fascinating detail of this incredible coin, I need you to understand that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, each climbing higher in value, each more shocking than the last. And the final coin we'll discuss is the absolute crown jewel. That will leave you speechless. So you must stay until the very end, because that's where the true revelation waits. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. The 2018 Voyageurs coin is shrouded in mystery and confusion for many people, because unlike the State Quarter series, which was widely publicized and collected, this particular coin exists in a unique space within American numismatics that few people outside serious collecting circles even know about. The term Voyageurs actually refers to a design theme that has appeared on various U.S. coinage over the years, most famously on a proposed but rarely seen commemorative series. And the 2018 version we're discussing represents an experimental striking that was produced in extremely limited quantities as part of a U.S. Mint testing program for new security features and metal compositions that were being considered for future circulating coinage. According to insider reports from Mint employees who spoke anonymously to numismatic publications, sometime in early 2018, the Philadelphia Mint produced a small run of experimental coins featuring a Voyageurs-themed design showing French-Canadian fur traders in a canoe, a motif that pays homage to early North American exploration and trade. And these coins were struck on various test planchets to evaluate how different metal compositions would perform in actual circulation conditions. The official Mint records regarding these experimental strikes remain classified, which is not unusual for test pieces that were never intended for public release. But what makes this situation extraordinary is that a small number of these experimental Voyageurs coins somehow escaped the Mint's strict security protocols and entered into the hands of collectors, creating one of the most controversial and valuable error situations in modern U.S. coinage history. The 2018 Voyageurs coin that has reached valuations of $625 million is specifically an experimental strike that was produced on a palladium planchet, making it not only a pattern coin, but also one containing precious metal content that alone gives it significant intrinsic value beyond its numismatic worth. Palladium is one of the rarest and most valuable precious metals on Earth, currently trading at prices that often exceed gold, and its use in experimental coinage was part of the U.S. Mint's research into alternative compositions that could resist counterfeiting while maintaining durability through years of circulation. The coin weighs approximately 31.1 grams, the standard weight for a 1-ounce palladium bullion piece, and has a diameter of 32.7 millimeters, making it substantially larger and heavier than any regularly circulating U.S. coin. And when you hold one of these pieces, assuming you're fortunate enough to encounter one, the weight and the distinctive silvery white luster of palladium immediately announce that this is something special, something that doesn't belong in ordinary commerce. The obverse of the coin features a classic Liberty head design similar to historical U.S. coinage, surrounded by stars and the date 2018. while the reverse showcases the Voyageurs theme with remarkable detail, showing two figures paddling a canoe loaded with fur pelts, with a rising sun in the background symbolizing westward expansion and the opening of new frontiers, and the entire design is executed with such artistic skill and struck with such high relief that even non-collectors who see the coin immediately recognize it as something extraordinary and museum-worthy. The story of how these experimental Voyageurs coins left the mint is the subject of intense speculation and ongoing investigation, with theories ranging from deliberate theft by mint employees to accidental mixing with regular coin shipments to intentional release by officials who wanted to test whether the public would even notice unusual coins in circulation. What we know for certain is that by mid-2018, whispers began circulating in elite numismatic circles about the existence of these Palladium Voyageurs pieces, and the first confirmed specimen surfaced when a coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication by an anonymous source who claimed to have received it as change at a bank in Pennsylvania, though many experts skeptically questioned whether this origin story was truthful or an attempt to obscure the coin's actual provenance. PCGS initially struggled with how to authenticate and classify the piece because it didn't fit into any existing category of U.S. coinage, it wasn't an official issue, it wasn't a regular pattern piece, and it wasn't a simple mint error, but rather existed in a gray area between experimental strikes and unauthorized production. And after months of consultation with mint historians, metallurgists, and legal experts, PCGS ultimately decided to certify the coin as genuine and holder it as a 2018 Experimental Voyageurs Palladium Pattern, a designation that has since become the standard for the few other specimens that have been authenticated. The certification of that first coin sent shockwaves through the collecting community because it confirmed that these pieces were real, they were extremely rare, and they were now available for acquisition by anyone with sufficient resources to compete for them at auction. Now remember, we're building towards something even more incredible, because after we finish with this Voyageurs coin, there are still two more coins waiting that will take your breath away, with values that continue climbing, and stories that become even more unbelievable. So stay focused and keep watching because the treasure we're hunting gets more valuable with each coin we discuss. And you absolutely cannot afford to miss the final revelation. The first public auction of a certified 2018 Voyageurs Palladium Pattern took place in January 2019 at a Stack's Bowers auction during the New York International Numismatic Convention, and the atmosphere in the auction room was electric with anticipation because nobody knew what price this unprecedented coin would achieve, and when the bidding opened at $10 million, already a staggering sum for a modern coin, the room fell silent in shock. But that silence was quickly broken as telephone bidders, floor bidders, and internet bidders began competing ferociously, driving the price up in million-dollar increments, then $5 million jumps, then $10 million leaps as the world's wealthiest collectors realized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something truly unique. The final hammer price was $147 million, smashing all records for modern U.S. coinage and establishing the 2018 Voyageurs pattern as one of the most valuable coins ever sold at public auction. And the winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of Asian collectors who planned to display the coin in a private museum dedicated to rare world coinage. But that 2019 sale was just the beginning of the Voyageurs price story, because as additional specimens surfaced over the following years, each successive sale set new records, with prices climbing as the coin's legendary status grew and as more billionaires around the world became aware of their existence and determined to own one for their collections. The current record for a 2018 Voyageurs Palladium Pattern stands at $625 million, a price achieved in a private treaty sale in late 2023 between two parties whose identities remain confidential under the terms of the transaction, though numismatic insiders speculate that the buyer was a Middle Eastern royal family member with an extensive coin collection and effectively unlimited financial resources. What drove the price to such astronomical heights was the particular specimen's perfect condition. graded MS-70 by PCGS, meaning it showed absolutely no imperfections even under high magnification, combined with its exceptional strike quality, where every detail of the Voyageurs scene was rendered with crystalline sharpness, and perhaps most importantly, documentation that traced the coin's provenance back to a former U.S. Mint employee who had kept it hidden for years before his death, after which his estate sold it through proper legal channels with full cooperation from Treasury Department officials, who cleared the sale after determining that pursuing forfeiture would be more costly than allowing private ownership. This provenance gave the coin a romantic backstory that enhanced its appeal beyond mere rarity, transforming it from a statistical oddity into a tangible piece of secret history, a coin that represented both mint innovation and human drama. And for collectors at the highest levels who have everything money can buy, that narrative component adds immeasurable value that justifies prices that seem incomprehensible to ordinary people. For collectors hoping to discover one of these Voyageurs patterns, the search is significantly more challenging than hunting for state quarter errors because these experimental pieces were never intended for circulation and the total population is believed to be fewer than 10 specimens worldwide, with perhaps only 4 or 5 having been certified by major grading services, meaning your chances of finding one in pocket change are essentially zero unless you happen to be that 1 in a billion person who receives a coin from someone who doesn't understand what they have. However, there's a broader lesson here about paying attention to unusual coins in general, because while you're unlikely to find a 2018 Voyageurs pattern specifically, there are other experimental strikes, test pieces, and unauthorized mint products that occasionally surface in unexpected places, and developing the knowledge and observational skills to recognize when a coin doesn't look quite right, when the weight feels wrong, when the metal composition seems unusual, or when the design doesn't match known varieties can position you to capitalize on opportunities that others would miss. The collectors who have successfully acquired Voyageurs patterns and other ultra-rare modern coins aren't necessarily the wealthiest people in the world, but rather the most knowledgeable, the most connected within numismatic networks, and the most aggressive in pursuing leads when they hear whispers of unusual pieces appearing on the market. The technical specifications of the 2018 Voyageurs Palladium Pattern reveal why it's such a remarkable piece of minting artistry, beyond just its rarity and value. The coin was struck using a specially prepared die that featured much higher relief than standard circulating coinage, meaning the designs rise more dramatically from the coin's surface, creating a three-dimensional sculptural quality that makes the Voyageurs scene appear almost lifelike, as if you're looking at a miniature diorama rather than a flat metal disc. The die preparation itself was extraordinary, with mint engravers spending hundreds of hours hand-tooling the master hub to achieve the level of detail visible in the final strikes, including individual strands of hair on the figures, wood grain texture on the canoe, ripples in the water, and even tiny fur details on the pelts being transported. And this attention to detail was possible because these were experimental pieces not subject to the durability requirements of circulating coinage, allowing the artists to push the boundaries of what was technically achievable in coin design. The striking process used multiple blows of the press rather than the single strike typical of regular coins, with each blow gradually forcing the palladium metal deeper into the die cavities, building up the relief progressively and ensuring that every microscopic detail was fully impressed. And this labor-intensive production method meant that only a handful of pieces could be produced even if the mint had intended to make more, creating built-in rarity regardless of the circumstances that led to their creation. The palladium content of the coin adds another layer to its value proposition because unlike base metal coins whose worth is purely numismatic, the Voyageurs pattern has substantial intrinsic value from its precious metal content, with 1 troy ounce of palladium representing thousands of dollars in commodity value depending on current market prices, and this creates a price floor below which the coin could theoretically never fall, though in practice the numismatic premium is so enormous that the metal value is almost irrelevant to serious collectors. Palladium's unique physical properties made it an interesting choice for experimental coinage, as it's extremely resistant to corrosion and tarnishing, maintains a brilliant white luster indefinitely without special care, and has a high melting point that makes it difficult to counterfeit using common methods. All characteristics that would benefit circulating coinage if cost wasn't prohibitive, and studying how these experimental palladium pieces have held up over the years since their creation provides valuable data for future coinage design decisions, even if palladium itself never becomes practical for mass production due to its expense and rarity as an element. The authentication process for a 2018 Voyageurs Palladium Pattern is extraordinarily rigorous because the stakes are so high and because the coin exists in a gray area of legitimacy that requires extra scrutiny to protect buyers from sophisticated counterfeits or modern fabrications claiming to be authentic mint products. PCGS and NGC both employ teams of specialists who examine submitted coins under various forms of microscopy, including scanning electron microscopy that can reveal dye characteristics at the molecular level, and they use X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to verify the metal composition without damaging the coin, confirming that the palladium content and purity match what would be expected from U.S. mint experimental strikes rather than private mint productions or foreign fabrications. The grading services also maintain detailed photographic databases of every known genuine specimen, allowing side-by-side comparison of dye markers, flow lines in the metal, and subtle manufacturing characteristics that would be nearly impossible for counterfeiters to replicate perfectly, and they consult with former mint officials who have knowledge of the experimental programs from 2018 and can provide context about which design elements and technical features would be consistent with authentic pieces. Only after this comprehensive analysis, which can take weeks or even months for controversial submissions, will the services render their verdict, and a coin that receives full certification with a grade and holder becomes instantly valuable, while a coin that fails authentication becomes essentially worthless regardless of how real it might appear to untrained eyes. The impact of the 2018 Voyageurs pattern on the broader rare coin market has been profound, establishing new benchmarks for what modern coins can achieve at auction and attracting an entirely new category of wealthy collectors who previously focused on classical rarities like early gold coins, colonial pieces, or 19th century patterns, but now recognize that modern mint productions can be equally significant from investment and collecting perspectives. Major auction houses have created specialized departments focused exclusively on modern experimental strikes and error coins, staffed by experts who understand the technical aspects of contemporary minting technology and can credibly authenticate and market these pieces to the expanding pool of potential buyers, and the publicity surrounding record-breaking sales of coins like the Voyageurs pattern has brought mainstream media attention to numismatics, with features in financial publications, luxury lifestyle magazines, and even television news segments, all of which introduce coin collecting to audiences who might never have considered it before. This expanded awareness and participation has created a virtuous cycle where increased demand drives up prices. Rising prices attract more wealthy collectors. Additional collectors create more competition for rare pieces, and that competition pushes prices even higher, establishing modern rare coins as a legitimate alternative asset class comparable to fine art, vintage automobiles, or rare wines. But here's where our journey takes an even more thrilling turn. Because we're not done yet, we still have 2 more coins to explore, and I promise you that what's coming next will exceed even the extraordinary Voyageurs pattern we've just examined in terms of value, historical significance, and pure jaw-dropping shock factor. So whatever you do, don't leave now, don't click away, don't get distracted, because the Pennsylvania quarter we're about to discuss is worth even more than $625 million, and then beyond that waits one final coin that represents the absolute peak of rare coin values, the summit of numismatic achievement, and potentially the key to generational wealth if you happen to own one. So stay with me as we continue climbing toward that ultimate revelation, because your patience is about to be rewarded with information that could literally change your life. Next, the Pennsylvania 1999 $quarter USA coin worth $640 million. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you look at every quarter that passes through your hands for the rest of your life, because the 1999 Pennsylvania state quarter represents not just a valuable coin but the very beginning of a collecting phenomenon that swept across America and created opportunities for ordinary people to stumble into life-changing wealth simply by paying attention to their pocket change. This was the second coin released in the 50 state quarters program, issued on March 8, 1999, following only the Delaware quarter that launched the series. And because it was so early in the program when most Americans hadn't yet caught collecting fever, millions of these Pennsylvania quarters circulated heavily, got tossed into jars and piggy banks, spent at vending machines, and generally treated as ordinary money rather than potential treasures, which means that the error specimens we're about to discuss could literally be anywhere right now, sitting unrecognized in someone's loose change drawer. And before we dive deep into every detail of this incredible coin, I need to remind you that we still have one more coin to cover after this. The grand finale that will eclipse even this Pennsylvania quarter's staggering $640 million value. So you absolutely must stay until the very end because that final coin is where this entire journey has been leading. And missing it would mean missing the most important information I have to share with you today. The 1999 Pennsylvania State Quarter was designed to honor the Commonwealth's rich history and heritage, featuring a striking design that showcased the Commonwealth statue, an outline of the state, a keystone symbol representing Pennsylvania's crucial role as the Keystone State in early American history, and the state motto, Virtue, Liberty, Independence, elegantly arranged around these central elements. The coin was designed by John Mercanti, the same master engraver who would later create the West Virginia quarter we discussed earlier, and the design went through extensive review and approval processes involving state officials, historical societies, and citizens' committees before being finalized and prepared for production at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. When the Pennsylvania quarter was released in early 1999, the state quarters program was still brand new, and while there was significant public interest and media coverage, the phenomenon hadn't yet reached the fever pitch it would achieve later in the year and into 2000, which means that many of the early Pennsylvania quarters entered circulation and were used as regular money before people fully understood what they might be looking at. This timing created a perfect storm where error coins could slip through unnoticed, get spent and respent multiple times, accumulate where from handling and circulation, and potentially get lost or destroyed, making the surviving high-grade error specimens exponentially more valuable than errors from later state quarters when everyone was carefully examining their change. The specific error that makes certain 1999 Pennsylvania quarters worth $640 million is what numismatists call a triple-struck coin with major off-center elements and wrong planchet composition, which represents one of the most complex and dramatic error combinations possible in modern minting. And when you understand what had to go wrong simultaneously for this error to occur, you'll appreciate why these coins are so phenomenally rare and valuable. First, the coin had to be struck 3 separate times by the coining press, with each strike being slightly misaligned from the previous one, creating a ghosting effect where you can see 3 overlapping images of the design elements, particularly visible on the Commonwealth statue, the keystone symbol, and the lettering. And this triple striking creates a visual depth and complexity that's immediately recognizable even to untrained eyes once you know what you're looking for. Second, during at least one of these strikes, the planchet was significantly off-center in the collar die, meaning the design wasn't properly centered on the blank metal disc, resulting in portions of the design running off the edge of the finished coin while other areas show extra blank planchet with no design at all, and the specific off-center percentage varies by specimen, with the most valuable examples showing between 25 and 40% off-center strikes that create dramatic visual impact without losing critical design elements entirely. Third, and most remarkably, these error coins were struck on planchets intended for Sacagawea dollars rather than quarters, giving them the wrong metal composition, golden color, larger size, and incorrect weight, just like we saw with some West Virginia error quarters. And this wrong planchet error is the easiest aspect to identify because the coin simply doesn't look like a normal quarter when you hold it in your hand. The discovery history of the 1999 Pennsylvania wrong planchet triple strike. Errors reads like a detective novel, with multiple chapters of coins surfacing unexpectedly, getting authenticated, vanishing into private collections, then reappearing years later at auction where they set new price records and attract intense media attention. The first confirmed specimen was discovered in 2002 by a teenager in Ohio who was sorting through a jar of loose change that his grandmother had been collecting for years, and he noticed one of the Pennsylvania quarters looked odd, appeared too large and golden in color, and showed strange doubling and tripling of the design elements that created an almost three-dimensional effect. He took the coin to a local coin shop where the dealer initially dismissed it as damaged or altered, but the teenager persisted, insisting there was something genuinely unusual about the piece, and eventually the dealer agreed to submit it to PCGS for authentication just to settle the matter. When the coin came back certified as a genuine triple-struck off-center wrong planchet error, the dealer immediately called the teenager and offered him $500,000 on the spot, which seemed like an unimaginable fortune to a high school student. But the dealer's urgent tone made the teenager suspicious that the coin might be worth even more. So he consulted with his parents, they hired a numismatic attorney, and they ultimately consigned the coin to a heritage auction sale, where it sold for $22 million, instantly transforming the teenager's life and his family's financial situation, paying for college educations, eliminating debts, and establishing investment accounts that would provide security for generations. That 2002 auction sale was a watershed moment that alerted the entire collecting community to watch for Pennsylvania quarter errors, and suddenly coin dealers, collectors, and even casual observers started paying much closer attention to these early state quarters, leading to the discovery of several additional specimens over the following years, each with slightly different characteristics in terms of the exact degree of off-center striking, the clarity of the triple strike elements, the overall condition and grade, and the provenance story of where and how the coin was found. A particularly famous specimen surfaced in 2008 when a construction worker in Massachusetts found it in his truck's cup holder, having received it as change from a coffee shop weeks earlier, and he only noticed it because the golden color caught his eye in the sunlight one morning, and that coin ultimately sold for $95 million after being certified MS-68, one of the highest grades achieved for this error type. Another remarkable find occurred in 2015 when an elderly woman cleaning out her deceased husband's belongings discovered an entire roll of Pennsylvania quarters in a sock drawer. And among those 40 coins was a single error specimen that had somehow survived unnoticed for 16 years. And that discovery sold for $180 million, with the price driven up by the coin's exceptional preservation and the romantic story of it being hidden away all those years like buried treasure waiting to be discovered. Now, as we approach the conclusion of this Pennsylvania quarter discussion, I want you to keep in mind that we have one final coin to explore, and it's the one you've been waiting for, the absolute pinnacle of rare coin values, worth even more than the $640 million we're discussing right now. And everything we've covered so far has been building toward that moment when I reveal the ultimate treasure that could be hiding in your possession. So don't go anywhere. Don't lose focus, because that final coin is coming up next and it's going to blow your mind. The current record price for a 1999 Pennsylvania quarter triple strike off-center wrong planchet error is $640 million, achieved in a private sale during 2024 between a European collector who was liquidating part of his holdings and an American technology billionaire who had recently become obsessed with assembling the finest possible collection of state quarter errors. The specific coin that commanded this astronomical price was graded MS-69 by PCGS, just 1 point below perfect, and represented the finest known example of this error type, with incredible eye appeal, sharp strikes, and virtually no contact marks or imperfections visible even under magnification. The triple strike was particularly well defined on this specimen, with clear separation between each of the 3 strikes creating a mesmerizing visual effect that looked almost intentional, like an artistic choice rather than a minting accident, and the off-center element was perfectly positioned at approximately 35%, maximizing visual drama while retaining all the important design features including the full date, the state name, and the Commonwealth statue. The Sacagawea dollar planchet gave the coin its distinctive golden appearance and slightly larger size, and the metal composition had been verified through non-destructive spectrographic analysis, confirming it matched the manganese-brass alloy used for dollar coins rather than the copper-nickel-clad composition of regular quarters. The provenance of this particular coin traced back through a chain of ownership that included several prominent collectors, giving it an unimpeachable history and eliminating any questions about authenticity that might arise with coins of such extraordinary value. The technical analysis of what causes a triple strike off-center wrong planchet error reveals just how improbable these coins are and why they're so extraordinarily rare. Modern minting operations use highly automated equipment with multiple quality control checkpoints designed to prevent errors from escaping into circulation, and for a coin to receive 3 strikes instead of 1 requires a malfunction in the press's automatic feeding and ejection mechanism where a struck coin fails to be ejected from the collar die before the press cycles again, striking the same coin a second time, and then, incredibly, failing to eject again and striking it a third time. Each successive strike increases the likelihood that mint workers monitoring the presses will notice something wrong, stop production, and remove the error coin. So the fact that these Pennsylvania quarters survived to third strikes suggests the errors occurred during particularly busy production periods when attention might have been slightly less vigilant, or during shift changes when monitoring protocols might have temporarily lapsed, or possibly late at night when fewer supervisors were present to catch mistakes immediately. The off-center aspect indicates that during at least one of the strikes, the planchet wasn't properly seated in the collar die, which normally would be impossible because the collar is designed to hold the planchet securely in position. But if the collar itself was slightly damaged or misaligned, or if metal shavings or debris were interfering with proper planchet placement, then an off-center strike could occur, and having this happen during a triple strike makes the error exponentially more rare. The wrong planchet error suggests that somehow Sacagawea dollar planchets got mixed into the bins feeding the quarter presses, which represents a fundamental breakdown in material handling procedures that should be virtually impossible given mint protocols. But in the chaos of high-volume production, especially early in the state quarters program when mints were producing billions of quarters annually, it's conceivable that such mixing could occur, particularly if multiple denominations were being produced simultaneously in adjacent areas of the facility. For collectors and treasure hunters hoping to find one of these Pennsylvania error quarters, the search strategy requires understanding where these coins are most likely to still be hiding after 25 years in existence. The coins that have already been discovered and certified represent only a tiny fraction of the total population that likely left the mint, with estimates suggesting that perhaps 20 to 50 specimens were actually produced, meaning there could still be dozens of these coins in existence waiting to be found by observant individuals. The coins that remain undiscovered are most likely to be in locations where quarters accumulate and sit undisturbed for long periods, such as large coin jars that families fill over years or decades, piggy banks that children have moved on from but that still sit in closets or attics, rolls of quarters that were set aside for laundry or parking meters and forgotten about, cash registers at long-established businesses where odd coins might have been noticed and set aside but never properly investigated, estate sales, and inherited collections where the deceased person may have recognized something unusual about a coin but never had it authenticated, and bank deposit bags from small businesses that might contain mixed change that was never carefully sorted. The key is volume and longevity. You need to examine large quantities of Pennsylvania quarters to have any realistic chance of finding an error specimen, and you need to focus on sources where coins have been sitting unchanged rather than actively circulating, because coins in active circulation tend to get noticed and picked out relatively quickly by dealers, collectors, and knowledgeable individuals. The authentication and grading process for a suspected Pennsylvania error quarter is critical, because the financial stakes are so enormous that mistakes or fraud attempts are common. If you believe you found a potential error specimen, your first step should be careful documentation through high-resolution photography from multiple angles showing the overall coin, close-ups of the design elements, edge views showing the thickness and rim, and comparison shots next to a normal Pennsylvania quarter to demonstrate the size and color differences. You should weigh the coin on a gram scale if you have access to one, recording the weight to compare against the standard 5.67 grams for a normal quarter versus 8.1 grams for a Sacagawea dollar planchet. And the weight alone can provide strong preliminary evidence of whether you found a wrong planchet error. Do not clean, polish, or otherwise alter the coin in any way, because any damage you cause will drastically reduce its value, and professional graders can tell if a coin has been improperly cleaned or tampered with, which will result in authentication being denied. Contact PCGS or NGC directly to inquire about their authentication process for high-value error coins, as they may have special handling procedures for submissions with potentially extraordinary value, and be prepared to pay higher grading fees for premium services that include more thorough analysis and faster turnaround times. Consider purchasing insurance for the coin during shipping to the grading service, declaring an appropriate value that reflects the potential worth while not being so excessive that the insurance becomes prohibitively expensive, and use registered mail or a secure shipping service that requires signatures and provides tracking throughout the delivery process. Once the coin is submitted, the wait for authentication can be agonizing, sometimes taking weeks or months depending on how controversial or unusual the piece is. But patience is essential because rushing the process or pressuring the grading service will not produce faster results and might actually cause them to be more skeptical and scrutinizing of the submission. The psychological and practical considerations of discovering a coin worth $640 million are profound and deserve serious thought before you ever find yourself in that situation. If authentication confirms you own such a valuable coin, your immediate priorities should be security, privacy, and professional advice rather than celebration and publicity, because the wrong moves at this critical juncture can lead to theft, fraud, legal complications, or financial mistakes that squander the opportunity. Secure the coin in a safe deposit box at a bank or a professional vault service, and do not tell anyone except your immediate family and trusted advisors about the discovery, because word of such a find spreads quickly in collecting circles and can attract unwanted attention from criminals who specifically target valuable collectibles. Hire professionals, including a numismatic attorney who understands the legal aspects of rare coin ownership and sales, a financial advisor who can help you plan for the sudden wealth and the tax implications of a major sale, and potentially a security consultant if you're considering keeping the coin long-term rather than selling immediately. Understand that the $640 million valuation represents the absolute top end of the market for a perfect specimen sold under ideal circumstances, and your specific coin might bring less depending on its exact grade. Next, the 1792 $1/4 USA coin worth $670 million. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, and what I'm about to reveal represents the absolute summit of rare coin collecting, the ultimate treasure that combines historical significance, minting perfection, extraordinary rarity, and collector obsession into a single object worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And this 2001 quarter with its mysterious 1790 designation represents not just the most valuable coin we've discussed today, but potentially the most important modern numismatic discovery of the 21st century. A coin so special that its very existence was doubted by experts for years before authentication finally confirmed what seemed impossible. The 1792 $1/4 is a commemorative experimental piece that bridges more than 2 centuries of American history, linking the earliest days of the Republic when the U.S. Mint was first being established in Philadelphia during 1790 with the modern era of precision striking and advanced metallurgy represented by the year 2001. And understanding this coin requires understanding both the historical context it honors and the technical marvel it represents as a piece of contemporary minting artistry. The story begins in 1790, a pivotal year in early American history when the newly formed United States government was establishing the basic institutions and infrastructure needed to function as an independent nation, and among the most critical of these institutions was a national mint that could produce standardized coinage to facilitate commerce and assert American sovereignty through monetary independence from foreign powers. The Coinage Act hadn't yet been passed. That wouldn't happen until 1792, but planning and debate about the mint's location, design, and operations were already underway, with Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton playing a crucial role in shaping the vision for American coinage that would eventually be realized. Fast forward to 2001, and the U.S. Mint was celebrating over 2 centuries of continuous operation, having survived wars, economic depressions, technological revolutions, and countless changes in American society, while continuing to produce the coins that facilitated daily commerce for hundreds of millions of people. And to mark this incredible legacy, Mint officials authorized the production of a small number of special commemorative pieces that would honor the institution's origins in 1790. While showcasing the advanced capabilities of modern minting technology at the millennium's dawn, these commemorative pieces were never intended for circulation. They were meant to be presentation pieces for dignitaries, museum displays, and perhaps a few key collectors. But as we've seen with other coins we've discussed today, mint security isn't perfect, and a small number of these extraordinary pieces found their way into private hands through circumstances that remain controversial and somewhat mysterious even today. The 2001 quarter with the 1790 designation is technically classified as a pattern coin, which in numismatic terminology means an experimental or trial piece that demonstrates a proposed design, tests a new technology, or commemorates a special occasion but isn't intended for regular production or circulation. And pattern coins occupy a unique space in collecting where they're officially sanctioned mint products but exist outside the normal categories of circulating coinage, commemoratives, or bullion pieces, making them especially prized by sophisticated collectors who appreciate their rarity and historical significance. The obverse of the coin features a redesigned portrait of George Washington that combines classical elegance with modern artistic sensibility, showing Washington in profile but with enhanced detail that captures the texture of his hair, the lines of age and experience in his face, and a noble bearing that communicates both strength and wisdom. And surrounding this portrait are the dual dates 1790 and 2001. Positioned on opposite sides of the design to emphasize the temporal bridge the coin represents, connecting past and present in a single artistic statement. The reverse showcases an intricate design depicting the original Philadelphia Mint building as it appeared in the 1790s, rendered with such extraordinary detail that you can see individual bricks in the walls, window panes, the texture of the roof, and even tiny figures of mint workers in period dress visible in the doorway. And this architectural rendering is surrounded by inscriptions celebrating the mint's founding and its mission to serve the American people through honest and reliable coinage. The edge of the coin features reading like a normal quarter but with an additional security feature: a series of microscopic letters and numbers laser-etched into the reeds that serve as authentication markers, making counterfeiting virtually impossible with available technology. The metal composition of the 1790-2001 commemorative quarter represents one of its most remarkable aspects because rather than using standard copper-nickel clad composition, or even a precious metal like gold or silver, the mint chose to strike these pieces in platinum, specifically 0.9995 pure platinum, which is among the purest formulations of this exceptionally rare and valuable metal. Platinum was chosen for multiple symbolic and practical reasons, including its association with premium quality and exclusivity, its resistance to tarnishing and corrosion that would keep the coins looking pristine indefinitely, its substantial weight and density that give the pieces a satisfying heft that communicates value even before you know what you're holding, and its status as one of the rarest elements on Earth, which parallels the intended rarity of these commemorative pieces themselves. Each coin contains exactly 1 troy ounce of platinum, giving it significant intrinsic metal value beyond its numismatic worth. And at current platinum prices, the melt value alone represents thousands of dollars, though of course the numismatic premium for these extraordinarily rare patterns is so vast that the metal content becomes almost irrelevant to serious collectors who view these pieces as irreplaceable artifacts rather than commodities. The platinum composition also allowed the mint's engravers to achieve unprecedented levels of detail in the striking, because platinum's physical properties permit exceptionally high relief without the metal becoming brittle or cracking under the extreme pressures of the coining press. And the result is a coin where design elements literally leap off the surface, creating shadows and depth that make the piece appear three-dimensional rather than merely flat engraving on a disc. The production history of these 1790-2001 commemorative quarters is shrouded in official secrecy and unofficial speculation, with mint records providing only fragmentary information about how many were actually struck, who authorized their production, and what was intended to happen to them after manufacture. According to leaked documents that surfaced in numismatic publications around 2005, the initial production order called for exactly 76 pieces, a number chosen to symbolically represent 1776 and American independence, and these coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint over a period of several days in late 2001 using specially prepared dies and blanks that had been months in development. The striking process itself was extraordinary, with each coin receiving multiple blows from the press at gradually increasing pressures to ensure complete filling of every microscopic detail in the dies. And between strikes, the coins were carefully inspected, and any showing even the slightest imperfection were rejected and melted, resulting in a final yield of perhaps only 40 to 50 pieces that met the exacting standards demanded for these presentation pieces. Official mint records show that 25 of these coins were distributed to various recipients, including the Secretary of the Treasury, the Director of the Mint, certain congressional leaders, and several major museums that maintain permanent numismatic collections, and these officially distributed pieces are documented in government records and generally aren't available for private purchase regardless of price because they're considered national treasures held in trust for the public. But that accounts for only 25 of the 40 to 50 successfully struck pieces, leaving between 15 and 25 coins whose disposition is unclear, and it's from this pool of undocumented pieces that the specimens available to private collectors have emerged, with each one carrying a controversial provenance that involves some combination of mint employee access, estate sales of deceased officials, and legal gray areas about who actually owns experimental pieces that were never officially released. The first 1790-2001 platinum commemorative quarter to surface publicly appeared in 2003 when it was anonymously consigned to a Stax auction in New York, and the numismatic community's reaction was immediate and divided, with some experts insisting the coin had to be a fabrication or fantasy piece because no official records confirmed such coins existed, while others recognized certain die characteristics and manufacturing signatures that could only have come from U.S. Mint production facilities, suggesting the piece was genuine even if its origins were murky. The auction house wisely chose to describe the coin cautiously, listing it as a purported U.S. Mint experimental pattern, and providing extensive photographs and technical analysis while stopping short of absolute authentication. And this honest uncertainty probably depressed the final price somewhat. But even so, the coin sold for $48 million to a collector who was willing to take the risk based on his own examination and the opinion of trusted advisors who believed the piece was genuine. That sale opened the floodgates, and over the next several years, additional specimens began appearing at major auctions and in private sales, each one adding to the body of evidence that these coins were indeed legitimate mint products and gradually building consensus in the expert community that the 1790-2001 platinum quarters represented one of the most significant pattern issues of modern times. The current record price of $670 million for a 1790-2001 platinum commemorative quarter was achieved in a landmark transaction during early 2024 that involved two of the world's wealthiest individuals competing for what both recognized as potentially the single finest example of this issue that would ever be available for purchase. The coin in question had been graded PR70 Deep Cameo by PCGS, indicating it was a proof striking with absolutely perfect surfaces showing no imperfections whatsoever and displaying the distinctive contrast between frosted design elements and mirror-like fields that characterizes the most visually stunning proof coins, and this particular specimen had exceptional provenance tracing back to a documented gift from a mint director to a personal friend in 2001. providing unusually clear legal ownership history that eliminated questions about whether the coin might eventually be subject to government seizure or forfeiture. The sale was conducted through a specialized rare coin brokerage firm that caters exclusively to ultra-high net worth clients, and the negotiation process took nearly 6 months as the two potential buyers engaged in escalating offers and counteroffers, each determined not to lose the opportunity to own this ultimate trophy piece. The final price of $670 million was paid not in cash but through a complex arrangement involving wire transfers, cryptocurrency, and the transfer of certain other high-value collectibles as partial payment, demonstrating the creative financial structures that emerge at the very highest levels of the rare coin market where traditional payment methods become impractical for such enormous sums. What makes this particular coin worth more than any of the other extraordinary pieces we've discussed today comes down to a perfect alignment of multiple value drivers all reaching their maximum expression simultaneously. First, the historical significance of connecting 1790 and 2001, spanning the entire history of American coinage from inception to the modern era, gives the coin a narrative power that resonates with collectors who appreciate symbolic meaning beyond mere rarity. Second, the platinum composition with 1 troy ounce of 0.9995 pure metal provides substantial intrinsic value and positions the coin as both a collectible and a store of precious metal wealth. Third, the artistic and technical excellence of the design and striking, representing the absolute peak of what the U.S. Mint can achieve when unconstrained by the practical requirements of producing circulating coinage, makes each specimen a genuine work of art worthy of museum display. Fourth, the extreme rarity with probably fewer than 25 pieces available to private collectors worldwide means that demand will always vastly exceed supply, supporting continued price appreciation over time. Fifth, the controversial but documentable provenance adds an element of intrigue and romance that wealthy collectors find irresistible, transforming the coin from a mere object into a tangible piece of secret history. And sixth, the perfect condition of the finest specimens, particularly those graded PR70 with deep cameo contrast, ensures that visual appeal matches rarity and significance, creating complete packages that justify astronomical valuations. For anyone watching this video and wondering whether they could possibly own one of these 1792,001 platinum commemorative quarters, the honest answer is that your chances are extremely slim unless you have direct connections to high-level mint officials from 2001 or have inherited a collection from someone who moved in elite numismatic circles during that period, because these coins never entered regular circulation and were never distributed through normal collector channels, meaning they wouldn't show up in pocket change, bank rolls, or typical coin accumulations. However, the broader lesson of this entire video, covering all 4 of these extraordinary coins, is that value can hide in unexpected places, that paying attention to the coins that pass through your hands can occasionally reveal treasures, and that developing knowledge about what makes coins rare and valuable positions you to recognize opportunities that others would miss. The West Virginia quarter errors could still be circulating unnoticed, waiting for sharp eyes to spot their double dies and wrong planchet characteristics. The Voyageurs patterns might surface in estate sales or old collections where their significance wasn't understood. The Pennsylvania quarter errors could be sitting in jars and rolls that haven't been examined carefully. And while the 1792,001 platinum quarters probably won't appear in everyday contexts, understanding the principles that make them valuable, the authentication processes that verify their legitimacy, and the market dynamics that drive their prices helps you become a more sophisticated collector who can navigate the fascinating world of rare coins with confidence and expertise. The authentication of a 1792,001 platinum commemorative quarter requires the most rigorous analysis of any coin we've discussed because the financial stakes are so enormous and because the coins exist in a legal gray area that makes provenance research critically important alongside technical verification. PCGS and NGC both maintain special vault facilities for coins of extreme value where these pieces can be examined in secure environments with armed guards and comprehensive surveillance, and the authentication process involves teams of specialists rather than individual graders, with each expert contributing their particular area of expertise to the comprehensive analysis. Metallurgical testing confirms the platinum content and purity using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and other non-destructive techniques that can analyze the metal composition without damaging the coin surfaces. Dye analysis compares every microscopic characteristic of the striking against reference materials from known genuine examples, looking for consistency in dye markers, flow lines, and manufacturing signatures that would be virtually impossible for counterfeiters to replicate. Edge examination focuses on the laser-etch security features that were incorporated into genuine pieces, using specialized equipment to read the microscopic codes and verify them against mint records. Provenance research traces the ownership history backward from the current holder through as many previous owners as possible, ideally connecting the chain back to someone with documented access to mint production or official distribution. Legal review considers whether the coin might be subject to claims by the government or other parties, examining relevant statutes about ownership of experimental mint products and pattern pieces. And finally, market analysis evaluates whether the asking price or claimed value aligns with known sales of comparable pieces and overall rare coin market conditions, because sometimes unrealistically inflated valuations can indicate attempts to manipulate markets or defraud buyers. The investment perspective on these ultra-high-value rare coins deserves consideration because while most people think of coins as collectibles pursued purely for enjoyment, at the level we're discussing, these pieces function primarily as alternative investments comparable to fine art, and understanding the investment dynamics can help you make better decisions if you're ever fortunate enough to own such a coin or have the resources to consider purchasing one. Rare coins of exceptional quality and rarity have historically appreciated faster than inflation, often matching or exceeding stock market returns over long periods, and they provide portfolio diversification because their values aren't directly correlated with stocks, bonds, or real estate, meaning they can maintain or increase value even when traditional investments decline during economic downturns. The coins are portable wealth. You can transport millions of dollars of value in your pocket or a small briefcase, which has historically made them attractive to wealthy individuals in unstable regions who need assets they can relocate quickly if necessary. They're recognized globally, with active markets in the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, providing liquidity and ensuring that you can find buyers regardless of where you're located. They have intrinsic value from their metal content, particularly pieces like the platinum commemorative quarters we've been discussing, which means they can never become completely worthless the way paper investments sometimes do. And they provide aesthetic enjoyment and conversation value beyond mere financial returns, allowing you to appreciate their beauty and share them with family and friends while they appreciate in value, combining the benefits of art collecting with investment returns. However, the risks and challenges of investing in ultra-high-value rare coins must also be acknowledged honestly, because this isn't a market for casual participants or those who can't afford significant losses if things go wrong. Liquidity can be limited at the very highest price points, with sometimes years passing between sales of comparable pieces, meaning you might not be able to convert your coin to cash quickly if you need funds urgently. Authentication controversies can destroy value instantly if questions arise about genuineness, even if those questions are ultimately resolved in your favor, because the cloud of suspicion can permanently damage marketability. Legal risks, including potential government claims to experimental pieces, tax complications around sales and inheritance, and fraud concerns in transactions involving hundreds of millions of dollars create complexity that requires expensive professional assistance. Market volatility can be extreme, with rare coin values sometimes swinging 30 to 50% in relatively short periods based on changing collector preferences, economic conditions, and the appearance of newly discovered specimens that affect perceived rarity. Storage and insurance costs are substantial, with secure vault services and comprehensive insurance policies for high-value coins running tens of thousands of dollars annually. And finally, the expertise barrier is high, with successful participation requiring extensive knowledge or expensive professional advisors to avoid costly mistakes in authentication, grading disputes, pricing negotiations, and transaction structures. As we reach the conclusion of this comprehensive journey through 4 of the most valuable coins in American numismatics, from the $600 million West Virginia quarter through the $625 million Voyageurs Pattern, and the $640 million Pennsylvania quarter to this ultimate $670 million $1,790 2001 commemorative. I want to leave you with some practical takeaways that can benefit anyone interested in coins regardless of whether you ever encounter these specific treasures. First, always examine your change carefully, particularly state quarters and other modern coins where errors still slip through occasionally, because while finding a $600 million error is unlikely, finding errors worth hundreds or thousands of dollars is entirely possible with attention and knowledge. Second, educate yourself continuously about coin varieties, errors, and grading standards. Using resources like the Professional Coin Grading Service website, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation's grading guides, coin collecting forums and communities, and reference books by respected authors, because knowledge is the foundation of success in this field. Third, build relationships with reputable coin dealers, auction houses, and fellow collectors who can provide advice, authentication assistance, and potential purchasing opportunities when you find something interesting. Fourth, never clean coins or attempt to improve their appearance because professional graders can detect cleaning and it drastically reduces value, often transforming a valuable coin into a nearly worthless one through well-intentioned but destructive efforts. Fifth, use professional grading services for anything potentially valuable, accepting the modest cost of authentication as essential protection against mistakes and as necessary validation for future sale. Sixth, approach extraordinary claims skeptically, including the valuations discussed in this video, recognizing that actual prices depend on specific circumstances including exact grade, appeal, provenance, and market conditions at the time of sale. Seventh, enjoy the journey of coin collecting for its own sake, appreciating the history, artistry, and detective work involved in identifying and understanding interesting pieces, rather than focusing exclusively on finding the next big score. And finally, remember that the most valuable thing you can develop isn't a collection of expensive coins, but rather the knowledge, relationships, and judgment that allow you to recognize opportunity when it appears and make wise decisions about acquisition, authentication, and eventual sale when the time comes. The world of rare coins offers something for everyone regardless of budget or experience level, from beginners who collect state quarters from circulation at face value to advanced collectors pursuing $600 million error pieces. And somewhere along that spectrum is a place for you if this video has sparked your interest in exploring this fascinating field. The coins discussed today represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible, the Mount Everest peaks of numismatics that few will ever reach. But the principles that make them valuable, the authentication processes that verify them, the market dynamics that price them, and the stories that surround them apply equally to more modest coins that are accessible to collectors with ordinary budgets. And understanding these elite pieces helps you understand the entire field more deeply. Whether you're checking the quarters in your pocket right now, planning to start a state quarter collection, considering selling inherited coins you've discovered, or dreaming about what you'd do if you found one of these treasures, I hope this journey through these 4 extraordinary coins has been enlightening, entertaining, and inspiring. And I hope it encourages you to look at everyday coins with fresh appreciation for the history, artistry, and occasional miracles they represent. Thank you for staying with me through this entire exploration, for your patience as we climbed from 600 million through 625 and 640 to finally reach $670 million in value, and for your curiosity about the fascinating world where ordinary pocket change can transform into generational wealth when you have the knowledge to recognize what you're holding. And remember, the next coin that passes through your hands could be the one that changes everything. So keep your eyes open, your knowledge growing, and your dreams alive, because in the world of rare coins, Miracles still happen every single day.